Hello, Deep Six Wrestling fans and this horrifying sausage man. Um, I am your host, the glorious Robbie Rotten, and welcome to another episode of Glorious or Rotten Rewind. This episode is going to focus on WrestleMania 16 or WrestleMania 2000, as it was also referred to, which took place on April 2nd, 2000, and we're in the thick of the Attitude Era here. This is taking place from the Arrowhead Pond in Anaheim, California. And out to sing the national anthem is Lillian Garcia, and not her best effort, but it was what it was. Um, I'm surprised they're trotting this out still. I just wouldn't have expected this during this time period. Doesn't seem like it would be there. But there it is, and now let's leap forward right into the card. First up, we have Godfather and D'Lo Brown versus Big Bossman and Bull Buchanan, and Ice-T came out to wrap Godfather and D'Lo Brown to the ring. It was kind of interesting to see. Thought he did a pretty solid job. And man, the Godfather was over everything he did, everything he said, all his offense. The crowd was nuts for him. And I was really surprised, but Bull Buchanan was kind of impressive. He did some cool things. Particularly, he did this springboard clothesline from the corner, and it was really cool looking. I just wasn't expecting that from a guy his size, and I just never really thought of him as a good worker. I don't know. He just never really stood out to me. So, it was a solid match, pretty back and forth. The heels get the win when Bull Buchanan hits a diving leg drop from the top rope on D'Lo Brown for the pin and the win. And yeah, it was a solid opener to WrestleMania. Nothing really to complain about here, and good way to kick off the card. Second up, we had the Hardcore Championship Battle Royal, and I'm going to have to use my notes for this because I'm going to read you off the participants and the rules of this match. Basically, it's not a battle royal where you throw someone over the top rope. It was a battle royal in that the champion can be pinned as many times as possible within a 15-minute time limit, and whoever is last holding the championship when the time runs out is the champion. So this is the list of participants. It was the champion Crash Holly, Taz, Viscera, Pete Gas, Joey Abs, and Rodney, all of the Main Street Posse, Hardcore Holly, Taka Michinoku and Funaki of Kaientai, Mosh and Thrasher of the Headbangers, Farouk and Bradshaw of the APA. Those are all the participants. And, you know, it was a really brutally violent match. There was a good amount of bloodshed, and definitely what you'd expect from a hardcore match. Lots of random objects being used, and lots of headshots. Oh man, it was really violent. Would not fly today. It was a little silly though, because there were a lot of times where it was just one or two people attacking the champion. Only the champion could get pinned. Like, you couldn't pin anybody. You had to pin the champion. So you'd think everybody would be gunning for the champion, but a lot of the time it would just be two or three people going for him, and that was it. So I thought that was a little silly. And here is what happened in the match. First, Taz pins Crash. And then soon after, Viscera pins Taz. And then Viscera holds on to the title for a long time, maybe like 5-6 minutes. And then finally, Funaki pins Viscera. And then Rodney immediately pins Funaki. And then soon after, gets pinned by Joey Abs. And not long after, Thrasher pins Joey Abs. And Pete Gas pins Thrasher. And then Taz pins Pete Gas. And Taz holds on to it for a long time, going to the final stretch of the match. There's maybe 30 seconds left. And then Crash Holly pins Taz. So we're in the ring. Taz locks the Taz mission on Crash Holly. And the timer's counting down. There's 30 seconds left when he locks it in. Then we get down to about 10. Then 5 seconds left. Hardcore Holly hits Crash and Taz with like a candy jar or something, and it just exploded all over the place. And Hardcore Holly pins Crash, And it's really kind of awkward because the ref doesn't actually count the three. There's still a second left, but he like stops counting, and there's a bit of a confusion, controversy. But Hardcore Holly indeed does get the pinfall, and Hardcore Holly wins the match and becomes the Hardcore Champion. It was a little bit of a confusing finish, and again, like I said, not enough people were really going for the title at all times like they should have. But it was fun. I enjoyed it, but it was still fun. Yeah, that's all I got to say about it. It was a good hardcore match. Nothing too offensive. Next up, we have Al Snow and Steve Blackman versus TNA, which is Test and Albert with Trish Stratus. And this was just kind of there. Al Snow and Steve Blackman. Al Snow brought out a little person in a cheese costume as their mascot, and Steve Blackman wasn't really happy about it, but he was at ringside through the match. He kept chasing Trish around, which is kind of weird. Like I said, the match was kind of there. Not really a lot of great action, but it was what it was. I love Steve Blackman, so I can't give this a bad grade. And the finish came when Test hit Steve Blackman with a diving elbow drop from the top rope and pinned him for 3. And then after the match, Al Snow and Steve Blackman beat up the cheese guy. So, whatever. It just kind of existed. It was nothing special. It probably should have been on Raw or something. It shouldn't have been on a pay-per-view, but whatever. I guess you got to get everybody on the card if you can. Next up, we have the Tag Team Championship Triangle Ladder match between the Dudley Boys, the Hardy Boys, and Edge and Christian. And I wasn't sure going into this WrestleMania if I had watched it. And now I remember for certain that I definitely watched this when I was younger. I saw this live. I don't think I watched the whole thing because I was young. I was about 10. So I think I was only able to watch until maybe I was able to watch a little bit more than half of it. I definitely saw this match, though. And you look at this on paper and you're like, wow, that sounds like a really great, fun ladder match. It is. This is 6 young, hungry guys just going all out and destroying each other to make an impact, to be innovative, and to further their careers. And they did just that. This was insane. This was just a car wreck. I wrote down all the best spots that I remembered even seeing. There were so many good ones, but I wrote down some of the best ones. There was one where Jeff hit a 450 splash on a ladder, and Bubba moved, and he just crashed straight into the ladder. Like, oh, ouch! I saw that and I just cringed. Oh, Christian crossbodied Bubba and Matt on the outside from a ladder that was inside the ring. So like that's like a huge drop. That's like 10 or 15 feet at least. It's terrifying. Edge hit a top rope spear on a ladder when Jeff was climbing up. So, oh my God. These guys are just massacring each other. Bubba hit a cutter on Christian from the top of like 2 ladders. Christian was climbing one. Bubba climbed the other. And when they got to the top, Bubba hit the cutter. Christian and Jeff fall off a ladder over the top rope to the floor. It looked so nasty. I wouldn't recommend ever doing that. Like, for any wrestler, that's just dangerous. But these guys were willing to do anything. And it paid off because all 6 of these guys are massive stars and are legends. So I guess it really paid off. This is a spot that everybody remembers. Jeff Hardy hitting a swanton bomb on the outside. Bubba's on a table. Jeff Hardy hits a swanton through the table and knocking them both out of the match. Edge and Christian end up winning when the Dudleys had earlier set up like 2 ladders with a table platform, and then Edge and Christian climbed the 2 ladders. Matt Hardy was up there as well. Matt Hardy climbed up and Edge climbed behind him. So Christian and Matt are kind of like going for it. Matt stands up to grab the titles, and Edge pushes them off through a table. And Edge and Christian grab the championships and become the tag team champions in an incredible car wreck of a match. Absolutely a glorious. Wow. This is insane. If you've never seen this, definitely go watch it. This is the precursor to the TLC match. Without this match, that would not be a thing. And wow, this can be. I think this could be considered the first TLC match. To be real, what a match! And next up, to follow that, we have possibly the most Attitude Era match ever, the cat fight with special guest ref Val Venus. It was Terry with the Fabulous Moolah versus the Cat with Mae Young. And basically, this was you had to throw your opponent out of the ring to win. Um, and it was just. First off, it started with both women kissing Val Venus simultaneously. Well, not at the same time. First, Terry kissed him, and then the Cat kissed him, I guess, to get an advantage. I don't know. And then, they kept fighting. But then Mae Young and Moolah kept getting involved, so Val kept being distracted, and the Cat threw Terry out at least 2 or 3 times. And then she kept getting back in. And eventually, they throw the Cat out, and then Val Venus actually sees it and declares Terry the winner. But then after the match, the Cat rips Terry's pants off. I don't understand what this was supposed to be. I don't know. Oh, it was not good. It was horrible.
Ew.
This is the kind of Attitude Era stuff that was not good and is not around today for that reason. So, yeah, pretty bad stuff. I would not recommend watching this. Next up, we had the Radicals, Eddie Guerrero, Perry Saturn, and Dean Malenko versus Too Cool and Chyna. And a lot of this was about Eddie being obsessed with Chyna. I guess he had like a crush on her or whatever. And Eddie was the star here. He did a great job as like a cowardly heel. Anytime Chyna got in the ring, he would like get on his knees and like crawl away. It was really funny. And yeah, this was solid, but it was just basically to put over that angle. Scotty 2 Hotty hit a double worm to a huge pop on Saturn and Malenko. The crowd loved that. And then finally, the faces end up winning when Chyna hits a sleeper driver on Eddie Guerrero for the pin. This is pretty fun. I mean, it was nothing. It wasn't really great. It wasn't a good match. It was alright, but it was a fun little angle. I can't complain about it. Next up, we have the Intercontinental and European Championship match. Well, Kurt Angle is holding both belts, and it's 2 falls. The first fall is for the Intercontinental Championship, and the second fall is for the European Championship. And the participants are Kurt Angle versus Chris Benoit versus Chris Jericho. All 3 phenomenal in-ring workers, 3 of the greatest of all time in the ring, and honestly out of the ring too. Chris Benoit obviously did what he did, but you can't take away what the guy did between the ropes. He was phenomenal. And this was pretty much just as good as you would expect. The 3 tore the house down, and they worked really hard. The first fall comes when Benoit hits a diving headbutt on Chris Jericho for the pin, and he wins the Intercontinental title. Also, I want to say that it's really weird to see Kurt Angle's theme song without the "You Suck" chants, because this was before that. Thanks, Edge. But this was before that time period, so he just came out and the crowd booed him, but no "You Suck" chants. It's so weird. And then the second fall got out of the way. A lot of great action, especially in the second half of the match. Lots of German suplexes from Benoit. Just lots of great stuff. There's a ref bump, and Benoit taps out Jericho to the crossface, but the ref's out cold, so he doesn't see it. And then Angle hits Jericho with the belt, with the European title. The ref again doesn't see it. But somehow, Chris Jericho ends up winning with a lion salt on Chris Benoit and winning the European title. And Kurt Angle has lost both his championships without being pinned or submitted, and he's not happy. I thought that was pretty funny that he lost without being involved. And yeah, it was a really good match. I'd give it a glorious, really good stuff from all three guys. And I mean, not any of their like best work, but still great match. Next up, we have X Pac and Road Dogg with Tori versus Kane and Rikishi with Paul Bearer. I think I think the angle before this was that X Pac and Kane were teaming up, and Tori was like Kane's girlfriend or whatever, and then they portrayed him. I think that's what happened. I vaguely remember seeing that, like when I was a kid. I vaguely remember that, so I think that was the angle. And I don't know why Rikishi was involved, but sure, why not? Um, and the crowd legitimately hated X Pac. Like, not like, oh, you're a good heel, boo. It was like, we hate you, go away. So I guess this is about the time where X Pac heat became a thing. Um, this match was just mostly about Kane getting revenge. And eventually, Kane hits the tombstone on X Pac and pins him for 3. And then Rikishi hits the stink face on Tori, and the crowd went wild. I don't know why. But yeah, they really loved that. The match was really kind of nothing, but it was fine for what it was. And then out comes the chicken. The chicken's here from last year. I don't know who this chicken is or why. Here he is. And he dances with Too Cool and Rikishi, which is hilarious. And then Kane is super suspicious of the chicken because last year it was Pete Rose. So he throws the chicken in the corner. He's choking him. And then out comes Pete Rose with a bat and goes to attack Kane. But Paul Bearer grabs the bat and Kane turns around, chokeslams Pete Rose. And oh my god, I just love this. I love this Kane Pete Rose thing. It's so funny. It's so random and out of nowhere. It's just great. That's just one of the great things about pro wrestling. This is something that I would show anybody with pro wrestling. It's stupid, but it's so fun. I love it. And next up, we have the main event, the WWF Championship Elimination Fatal 4-Way match with a McMahon family member in each wrestler's corner. It was the champion Triple H with Stephanie McMahon versus the Big Show with Shane McMahon versus The Rock with Vince McMahon versus Mick Foley with Linda McMahon. And Mick Foley had actually, to set this up, The Rock had won the Royal Rumble at last eliminating the Big Show. But on reviewing the footage, technically Big Show had won because The Rock's feet touched the floor when Big Show threw him out earlier and he came back in. So that was Big Show's argument to get in this match. And Mick Foley had been retired at No Way Out, I believe, in a Hell in a Cell match against Triple H in February. And then Linda McMahon reinstated him to be in this match. So that's how all 4 of these guys figure in. And yeah, there was a lot of really good action. Big Show gets eliminated early after a chair shot from Foley and a rock bottom from The Rock. So he's gone and Shane leaves with him. And then there's really good action from the 3 guys left. They just destroy each other with chairs and all moves. There was one point where Foley and Triple H surprisingly were teaming up against The Rock, and Triple H puts The Rock on the announce table, and Foley goes to dive from like the second rope off the apron onto The Rock, and he comes up short actually. And he misses the table. Like he just hits the table like really hard with his ribs. That probably was not supposed to happen, and it definitely hurt. And Triple H ended up putting The Rock through the table finally with like 2 elbow drops off the barricade. Took 3 shots to that table to take it down. So definitely did not feel good for any of those 3 guys. And then a little bit later, Foley is in the ring with Triple H. Triple H hits a pedigree, but Foley kicks out. And Triple H hits a chair headshot. And then a second pedigree on the chair to put him away and officially end Mick Foley's career for now. And then Foley gets his his signature weapon, the barbed wire with 2x4, and hits Triple H in the head with it, and then leaves. And then Rock and Triple H have a good back and forth, but this part of the match was just overly long and definitely overbooked. The McMahon family gets involved. It's just Stephanie and Vince left. And then Shane comes back and hits Vince with a television monitor. And then Vince fights back. And then eventually Shane hits him with a chair, busting him open and knocking him out. Vince gets taken to the back, and Shane kind of stays there. He gets the ring. He kind of gets involved in the action. And then Vince comes back and hits Shane, chases him away. And then Vince hits The Rock with a chair. And Triple H goes for the cover. Rock kicks out at 2. Rock gets up. Vince hits him again. And Triple H pins him for 3 to retain his championship and become the first ever heel to win the main event of WrestleMania. And I mean the main event as in the last match, because technically Yokozuna won the main event of WrestleMania 9, but then Hulk Hogan came out and won the main event anyway. So that was really, I guess, the main event. So the first heel to win the main event and actually walk out as champion. And then The Rock is pissed. He hits Shane, Vince, and Stephanie, all with rock bottoms. It was long. It was overbooked. It was very Attitude Era. But it was fun. It was a great match. It was a great main event. Not one of the better ones ever or anything. But it was still really fun. I'm going to give it a glorious. I definitely wouldn't have booked it as much. I would have kept the McMahon stuff to a minimum. And I think I would have made The Rock and Triple H one-on-one a little shorter. But I can't really complain too much about it. It was still really good. And as a whole, this WrestleMania was pretty solid. There was only a couple things that were really pretty bad. But other than that, there was a lot of fun stuff that happened. And yeah, I enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe to us here on YouTube. Leave a comment on our videos. Go like our videos too. Go like us on Facebook at Deep Six Wrestling, and follow us on Twitter also at Deep Six Wrestling. And have a glorious day.